Hello, how you doing? How's your day been? Have you got a cup of tea? I have. Does she look a little bit familiar, maybe? It's been a really surreal day today, hasn't it? You have to excuse me if it suddenly goes very dark in here. The sun is setting over there somewhere. Um, so you might find that I become a little bit even more weird looking. Um, so I thought about this today, and as if I didn't think about it yesterday, um, about doing this again, and telling another socially distant story, in that I'm telling you a story from an acceptable social distance all the way over here, as opposed to, well, there. Um, and sharing with you a story that I've written that I've been involved in. And I say involved in because the story that I'm going to be reading from today is that one. This is Retreating to Peace by me. I think written now 2 and a bit years ago, and this is from a novella series, the Peace Novella series, and it's very different from all the other books that I've written in that I wrote it as part of a group of authors, who very much like we are now are scattered all across the globe. And we worked together to create this series of novellas based upon the brainchild of S.H. Pratt, who is currently in Washington. Hello, if you are watching me. Um, the premise being that in Montana, the very real state of Montana, there is a fictional town called Peace. And in this town, there are lots of citizens, lots of denizens, and we all wrote about a character. We developed a character and helped to fill out this world. And my contribution to that particular series, the first contribution that I've made, was this one, Retreating to Peace. And tonight I'm going to give you a very brief flavour in the next half an hour or so of what this particular story, this book, this novella is about. It's about a young man called Devon Coultry, who is a Briton. He lives here in Britain, in Rugby, of all places, and decides through sheer serendipity, and you're going to hear about the serendipity in a minute, decides to migrate. I can never be sure of the actual correct vernacular, but he emigrates all the way to Montana, Peace, Montana. Stay with it. It gets there. And the series of books, these stories, mine in particular, are a insight into his world and what he does, the relationships he forms, the people he meets. And tonight I'm going to give you the introduction to who he is and what he is. So we're going to hear about how he lands in peace and to what extent his life changes, really. As with yesterday, the idea is to share with you guys something I've produced, something I care about, in a time that feels very unsettled. Life is certainly different, it's not necessarily normal, and in such times we need things that we feel are constant and hopeful, that help us keep connected. And connection is the key with what I'm trying to do with these socially distant stories. Stories are part of human nature. They are part of the way that we live our lives, communicate, share ideas, experiences. And without them, I think life becomes greyer. So through stories, through sharing, I guess it's about being part of that experience. That doesn't mean I'm any good at this. I'm sort of winging this right now. It's a bit like when you get a duck and on the top they look very serene, and on the bottom their legs are going like this. It's pretty much like that right now. I was sat here before I came on air thinking about how I feel, and the feeling right now was of a horrible anxiety in the pit of my stomach. But the fact is, I wanted to share this and do something positive, share rainbows. So this is the book. So shall we see what happens? You have to bear with me and we'll see what happens. So, life can change in the blink of an eye or with the flipping of a coin. For Devon, life changed when he stuck a pin in the map that hung upon the wall of his father's study. The sharp point of the brass tack had punctured Peace, Montana. That was a name that he had seen as he opened one eye after the other while standing there with his tongue sticking out of the corner of his mouth. Montana. He had to double check the map. Montana was all the way over there, across the pond and in the United States of America. The decision had been made, and by the universe. He, Devon Coultry, would be headed towards Peace, Montana, and as soon as physically possible. That meant moving kit and caboodle from Rugby, England, and across the vast ocean. He'll be leaving his family, his friends, and everything else that he called dear. There was, after all, no reason to stay. Not really. Everything was fairly messed up. Death had seen to that. Death had snatched up Devon's dreams, taken a good laugh at them, and a good look. To laugh like a drain. This is what I mean by winging it. Things go wrong. Death's fingers had torn up each and every one of his dreams, scattering them into the four winds as though ash. Devon looked at the pin between his index finger and his thumb as he pinched it out from the wall. It took an effort to wrench it out from the brick, from against the shiny surface of the map. He would go, and to hell with the consequences. So that's how it opens. That's how, through sheer serendipity, Devon Coultry decides to migrate, emigrate, whatever the word is. Someone out there is going to correct me at some point. To go across the ocean, to the pond, to Montana. And he lands there as the book progresses, and who knows, if this idea sticks, I might then, read some more of it. Who knows how long this is going to last? Well, we do, but let's be hopeful. And through this book, we see how he meets the people of Peace, how they adopt him, how he lives his life. And the simple fact of the matter is, Devon Coultry has a bit of a past that he can't actually escape. Whilst he's gone and he's left and his mum and dad still know of him, and he has somebody in his life who's rather important, but is something of a game changer. Her name is, you know what? I'll leave that for a moment. I'll just tell you what happens. Bleary-eyed, Devon bumbled around his rather compact bedroom as he dressed in the dark. He was convinced that Great Aunt Claudie, I'm going to pause there, Great Aunt Claudie isn't a human being. Great Aunt Claudie is the name of his RV. Long story, but read it. He was convinced that Great Aunt Claudie was spinning and that with every step he took, his body throbbed. His stomach lurched over and over as he pulled on a clean t-shirt and a pair of dark jeans. For the moment, he had no idea how he had returned home. Never a good sign, is it? As he stepped into the kitchen, Devon caught sight of a beige Stetson dangling off the back of a chair. Funny thing is, I have that beige Stetson. On the worktop, next to the stove, were 2 toffee apples, one of which was still in its cellophane wrapper. The other was half-eaten. The otherwise white crisp flesh, had turned an interesting shade of brown with exposure to the air. Devon had been about to reach for the kettle. He was desperately in need of a good, strong cup of tea. Only his stomach was in severe and pained disagreement. The sensation was so intense, he was compelled to turn on his heel and head straight to the bathroom. Well, what do you think is going to happen next? Only just making it, he held onto the toilet bowl in his arms as though he was greeting a long-lost friend. He was there a while, as his stomach emptied itself of beer, barbecue, and an acrid mess of yellow acid. Such were the consequences of overindulgence, of enjoying the carnival atmosphere, and a little too much. With his stomach feeling lighter, and no sensation of being on a spin cycle to the point of being disorientated, he tried once more to make tea. Leaning heavily against the worktop, with his digits splayed across the surface, he was still feeling a little bit more than discombobulated. It was taking a supreme effort to stay upright and not fall to the floor in a Devon-shaped puddle. His plan for today had been to hit Main Street. After the parade and the bonfire yesterday, there was a fair scheduled. Big event, founders' weekend, it'll make sense. Turning over his wrist, he peered at his watch. 7:30. Bloody hell, he muttered. Must have been hammered halfway to hell. God only knows what happened. He tried to think, but then shaking his head, the pain told him not to. Hearing the kettle boil, he slowly but steadily set about making tea. It was then that he saw his phone resting against a toaster. Then there was the bright pink boa sat next to it, with its end shaking down towards the floor. Putting his one hand to the boa, he draped it around his neck, threw it over his shoulder, and let it fall with a flourish. With the other hand, he scooped up the phone. There were over 24 missed calls and messages. They were all from the same person. He had to blink, focus himself as he double-checked the name. He was starting to sober up a little as a phone vibrated. The name of the caller flashed on the screen. "Open your door, Devon," said the voice. "It's hot, I'm tired, and God only knows what we're missing in town." Devon dropped his phone to the floor, bounded across the RV, Great Aunt Claudie, and opened the door. There stood before him was the incessant caller and the owner of the voice. "Hello, gorgeous," said Aditi, giggling and with menace. "How's your head this morning?" Well, that's the woman, and she appears, lands on his doorstep in Montana. And she's important. She's a big part of his world, and their relationship is interesting. So interesting it progresses further. Well, it would have to. There's 2 more books. There's 3 of them, actually. But maybe we'll save that for another day. So what you've heard is an introduction to Devon Coultry, the Peace Novella series, and what happens to him. Hopefully that has, I don't know, what did it give you? What did you get? She says, not at least sounding like a counsellor or a teacher or anything. But I hope that was useful, and I hope that sharing it has been an interesting experience for you. Who knows if this is good, if there's a positive response, if people don't mind my Birmingham accent and reading things, maybe I'll do it again. But between now and then, keep yourself safe, self-isolate, be socially distant. We live in rather weird and wonderful times, and by staying indoors, we're serving a better common purpose. Don't go around and, spread your bogies and stuff. Not a good idea. So in such times, we need things that bring us hope. Hello. And hope is a many a splendid thing. It comes in all shapes and sizes, which is how I opened up really in this particular episode. So may it happen again? I don't know. Maybe it will. Watch this space, literally. And if you like it, then share it. It might be of use and of value to someone. But before I go, I do have tea, yes. But if anybody has ever read Devon, and I suspect all 5 of you out there somewhere have, he has a thing about bourbon. Bourbon and jai are 2 things that appear in the books in one shape or form. There's even one point where Devon is really unwell, and I think I write the lines, bourbon was the answer, bourbon's the answer to everything, even better with jai, and it is better with jai. So don't worry, I'm not going to drink this right now, and you don't drink this stuff on an empty stomach. I'm having my dinner, but there you go. You can't mention, Mr. Coultry, who later on becomes the Montana Moonshine Ooch Baron. Bit of a mouthful, I know. But I'm going to cover that up because nothing needs to fall into it. Well, it's alcohol. Anything that goes into it's probably going to die anyway. But I won't drink that yet. I'll drink it later, maybe when I've had something to eat. And yes, I will be eating, and it will be drunk responsibly. God forbid the aunties come out and start telling me off about it. But I was trying to wrap up, wasn't I? Right, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Wish you all safety. Wish you all hope and happiness. And maybe I'll catch you sometime, but if you like it, let me know. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Take care.